Good morning, everyone. My name is Heike Manning. As you probably know by now, I'm the Executive Director for Centres for Acumen for Southeast Asia. Most of you now also know that I have a strong history and connection to India. I lived here for 3 years, about 20 years ago, and it's fantastic always to come back and to see the energy I remembered from my time there from 20 years ago is here in spades, and so many changes for the positive as well. Just before I introduce our panelists today, I actually just wanted to acknowledge the remarks that we just heard from Ganesh Kohli. Really interesting, I think. Some of the ideas that he was talking about around a humanistic rather than a mechanistic approach to recruitment, and this idea of taking a step back from this core idea of recruitment and thinking about how you can empower the students through your activities. And maybe that's something we might touch on today as part of this panel a little bit as well. So we are running a little bit behind schedule today, and I appreciate your attention, and at some point I'm sure you'll get some coffee, but in the meantime I did want to introduce our panelists, and this is a real pleasure for me because these guys we're very proud of our staff, our in-country representatives, and we've got 4 very fine specimens here today. So I'm going to introduce them just with a little personal flavour as well. So firstly, we have Raheel Kapoor, who's a Senior Recruitment Advisor supporting University of Nottingham. Round of applause for Raheel. Okay, so Raheel has been with us for Acumen for 2 years. He is a proud UK alumni from Warwick. And one small interesting thing about him is that he loves board games. In particular, risk, strategy board games. Okay, so there you go. We have Madhu Sharma, Regional Recruitment Advisor supporting University of Salford. Round of applause, please. So Madhu is based in Mumbai. She's been supporting Salford for around 8 years now, I think. And she's got a really interesting background, I reckon. So not only is she a STEM graduate in chemistry, she also does aerial yoga. I'm not sure what aerial yoga is, but it sounds quite high risk. Oh, she tells me it's not, okay. Thirdly, we have Hakirat Singh Sani. And fortunately to his friends, he's known as HK, which makes it much easier for me as well, thank you. HK is a recruitment advisor supporting University of Westminster. Please put your hands together for HK. So he supports Westminster in their efforts across South Asia, including Bangladesh and Nepal. And he is a foodie. And does that mean consuming or cooking? Consuming, okay, all right, very sensible, good. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Mishi Sadana, Regional Advisor, South Asia, supporting Queen Mary, University of London. Round of applause, please. With responsibility for North and South India as well as Sri Lanka. And she's a big fan of movies. Who isn't? I'm also a big fan of movies, so anyway, welcome, and it's great to have you all here today. So we're going to talk a little bit about regional differences in recruitment, trends and insights, pan-South Asia. And I'm going to ask a few more sort of practical questions today. So yesterday was very much around sort of a high-level kind of strategic perspective on the market and what's happening here in India. And I wanted to use this session to get a little bit more into the practicalities of what's happening on the ground. And if we have a little bit of time, I can't resist this because I'm Executive Director for Southeast Asia. I may just add in a few observations and comparisons with what we're seeing there as well. I will also put a couple of questions to you guys as the audience as well as we go through. But without further ado, I'm going to start off, and I'm going to put a few questions to the panel to get us started. So my first question to the panel, and maybe we can start with Raheel and move down, is a question around where. So where is the focus of your recruitment activity, and why? Why are you focused in those areas? And has there been a shift in your focus in recent years? Over to you, Raheel.
Is this working? Yeah. So I think over the last few years, I think our main focus in terms of markets has been a volume market, a diversity market, and an emerging market. So India, we've termed as a volume market, just like China, because we get a lot of applications from there. And Bangladesh overall would be a diversity market, where you can't really identify where a particular subject area has a high number of applications. So over the last, I think, 5-6 years, we were very traditional in terms of our approach, and we were working with, let's say, 2 or 3 global agents and a few boutique agents. So a major change that we have brought in is that we've expanded our overall agent portfolio. So focusing on agents who have a regional strength. So slowly, I think that has really helped us in increasing our numbers from not particular areas, but also tier 2 and tier 3. And I think a major regional shift for us has been a little bit of a challenge in terms of recruiting the not so popular courses like engineering and biosciences. And for that, I think now what we've done is we've added a couple of more in-country personnel in India. So we have a person in Bangalore now to focus on the southern region, which I think really helps out in knowing the local language, communicating, and I think building a better relationship also with agents. So yeah, I think for now, this is something that we've really focused on.
Thanks very much, yeah, and it's a good, interesting distinction about when we talk about diversity versus volume and finding diversity market. It's either within India itself or within South Asia. Let's just go across I'll hand it over to Madhu.
So I'm here to talk about Sri Lanka. I think it's important that we understand the education system out there, because one of my challenges with Sri Lanka was when I started looking after the country was to understand how the education system is there. So right after 12th, so since they have only about 15 state universities, not all the students go through that. So they have about more than 100 institutes, or you can say private universities. And TNE is quite popular in Sri Lanka. So a lot of students, because they don't get through the state universities, they actually opt for the private universities, which have a tie-up with, they might be doing like, some course with a UK university, and being at home, they would complete their graduation. Subject-wise, I would say earlier I could see that they were more focused on business, accounting, but now they are diversifying to IT. Even teaching is something that I'm getting inquiry about. As per the region in Sri Lanka, of course, it's quite small as compared to India. So earlier we used to do a lot of visits and focusing more on Colombo. But this year I also did event in Kandy, which was, we had a very good turnout at the event. There are some of our agents who have already either opened their office in Kandy or they are planning to open one. So yeah, this is my view on where.
Perfect. Thank you, Madhu. And I'll be talking about the Bangladesh market. So Bangladesh does have a number of regions within it. Dhaka, of course, being the capital region, does attract a large number of students. So that does tend to be our area of focus as well, just in terms of reaching out to numbers when we're looking at students. I mean, there are a good number of agents on the ground. Sometimes it tends to be too many, so that's why we don't work with many. Like, we tend to work with only like the major players, where we are very sure about the quality of the applications, and particularly in terms of how the students can speak in English, because in their local board, Bangla is a big stress. I mean, they do emphasize a lot upon their local language. I mean, that was one of the major predominant factors in the inception of Bangladesh as well, as a majority Bangla-speaking nation and region. So we do need to be careful in that regard. I mean, there are a lot of sub-agents. That is a prevalent model over there. So we know that under the ground, I mean, it is something like even the major players are involved with, but like in terms of us as in-country representatives, like, I mean, there's a greater need to be like more firm in terms of what we want to communicate and what kind of students we want, and what are the kind of practices we want to be happening on ground. Because as a market, like in Bangladesh and even like other Asian markets like Pakistan, where these sub-agent models do kind of have a prevalence, it is important to monitor that to a great extent. We've also started to see like a number of applications from other regions now, apart from Dhaka, which was predominantly the largest market. So other areas like Chittagong and Sylhet, Rajshahi, now we're seeing a lot of students from those regions, which is a welcome addition in terms of getting a diversity on board. I think that is a focus for a lot of our universities as international universities, and that does add to the student experience. But at the same time, again, there are certain factors we need to be careful about. We need to look into in a more detailed manner, because like regions like Sylhet in the past, like we've heard from the Home Office that a larger number of students who've actually stayed back in Bangladesh and seeked for asylum after their studies, it's been observed that it's coming from this particular region. So now when I communicate with my partner network over there, I make sure, like, I mean, there's no distinguishing between the regions or the students, I mean, because we're an equal opportunities university, but there are stricter steps that are followed at the partner network, and they will make sure that all the eligibilities are like clearly met, and there is just more things that we look at in terms of documentation, and that everything is in place. So.
Thanks, HK. I think there's some really interesting observations in there as well, which we might come back to as well, around obviously looking outside of Dhaka, some of the language issues as well. So very interesting stuff. Mishi.
Thank you. Thank you, HK. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel. So in terms of focus for Queen Mary, when the graduate route was announced, PG recruitment has somehow is almost on autopilot. So our focus is also towards undergrad recruitment. Post-pandemic, we saw that a lot of students are still wanting to use hybrid counseling. So we try to help students through hybrid interaction as well. We are noticing that there is a rise in students from Tier 3 and the satellite cities who are more eager to come to UK and want to have a better future. So our focus is also around Tier 2, Tier 3. We've not reached Tier 4 yet, but that is part of our strategy to reach Tier 4 as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and actually that's really interesting, because that was something that Ganesh talked about as well, in terms of there's obviously certain schools in certain areas in Tier 1 cities that are extremely well covered and saturated in many cases, but a lot of other places which are relatively untouched. And so I did want to just put a quick question to each of you around, in terms of the respective areas and regions that you're focused on, whether you are actually getting into what we call Tier 3, Tier 4 cities now. Rahil.
You mean in terms of the focus that we have?
Yeah.
Yes, so we have started doing that. I think specifically for University of Nottingham, I think Lucknow has done really well. So I never expected students to come from a city like Lucknow. But since we've noticed that interest, I think, so it reciprocates. Now we've started paying more attention. we've started investing more in terms of the fares. I think that's also an overall strategy that you plan initially, that where are we going to spend most of our times. And I think that's something that we've been able to do. We are exploring newer cities like Vizag, Coimbatore, Ahmedabad. For a long period of time, we were only 2 members in India. I think with that expansion, it has given us the opportunity to really explore these cities as well. So for now, yes, postgraduate recruitment has been good, but our focus would be to recruit for the not so popular courses from these tier 2 and tier 3 cities and get that competitive advantage. So I've studied at Warwick, and I think one thing Warwick did was get that competitive advantage. So I think if universities can do that in tier 2 and tier 3, it really helps, because tier 2 and tier 3 work on word of mouth. So if you can get that competitive advantage, I think overall in the next 5 to 6 years, it really helps you out. Yeah.
Fantastic. Madhu.
Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
quite understand. We couldn't hear properly.
The acoustics.
Sorry. Yeah.
We're struggling with the acoustics up here a wee bit. You can hear us loud and clear, but
Yeah, but it's still.
let me just speak very slowly.
Repeat your question.
So the question was around tier 3, tier 4 cities, and the extent to which you're exploring those as part of your recruitment strategy. Did you hear that?
Tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And
Yeah.
what have you,
Okay. So since I look after Pan India, I can comment on this. We do actually get a good number of students from Coimbatore, and even I have done quite a few institute visits in Guntur, because I think Mr. Ganesh was just mentioning about that. It's actually like, you can say it's like an education hub in India. And yes, there are places that we've not yet explored. We don't think that, we might get students from here. But I see a lot of potential there. And we've got students, when I look at the database, we have students from very smaller interior regions, even in Maharashtra. And I can remember of one case. The student went for aeronautical engineering studies with us. It's an undergrad program. And after him, the next year, he had like about 2 or 3 of his friends joining from the same institute to us. So I think that it's all on how much you would go out and reach out and at least, try it out. And undergrad market is quite different. You have to visit the institutes at least continuously 2 or 3 years. And then, you know that, yes, I can look at conversions. Yeah.
Thank you.
So in terms of recruitment at the moment, like since PSW in the UK, it is a problem of plenty that we faced. So we are receiving a huge number of applications, and it is somewhere it is kind of difficult to filter out where we want to target and the kind of regions, the amount of regions we are able to cover also, because as I mentioned, the problem of plenty, how to process so many applications also and to be fair to our applicants and make sure that everything is coming out on time. So we've had to keep our recruitment activity limited, balanced between the different places also. But tier 3 and tier 4 cities are still a little bit out of reach at the moment. Maybe when the problem of plenty is solved, at that time, these are regions that we'll be looking at also to a greater extent. But also I think sometimes it depends on the positioning of the university as well. And you do attract different kinds of students from different regions. So Westminster, in particular University of Westminster, we are in central London, and we do get a lot of interest, in particular from the big metropolitans. A lot of students want to stay in central London, and they are well aware about London as a city, and they have certain expectations from there. Obviously, when we reach out to the other budding cities and small towns as well, that interest does arise as well. In terms of Bangladesh, as I mentioned, Dhaka is the larger market. Other regions are picking up in terms of the variety of applications as well. It's not just in terms of numbers they are rising, but the kind of courses have also diversified in the past. I'm receiving applications for a lot of diversified areas, in particular in the past I wouldn't, fashion has really picked up for us from Bangladesh in particular. So again, when we talk about these regions, the other regions, the pandemic has aided us quite a bit because we are able to reach out to them much easily. Like even when I want to connect with my counselors, or if I want to connect with school counselors in these places, like we're just a call away, or we can connect on Zoom. Earlier, like in terms of reaching out, in terms of logistics, it was not always possible because there are lots of fairs that are happening. There are so many events. So sometimes it becomes difficult to do everything, although we do want to do that at many times, but we do have to pick and choose sometimes. So yeah, that's a glance at it.
Thank you. So, like I previously said, the consumers in Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 1 particularly, all the metropolitan cities, are very focused and very well aware. Like Ganesh mentioned previously, the Tier 3 and Tier 4 students don't necessarily have the accessibility or the means or the awareness. So yes, the focus on Tier 3 cities with the help of technology has been around areas in the south. Specifically, I would say Mysore is coming out as a big market. Kochi has evolved quite a bit. And also the likes of Vijayawada, Guntur, and some parts in the central west, like Indore, Bhopal, etc.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think it's a really interesting point around technology and the ability to access more easily some of those third-tier cities that you might not otherwise be able to get to so easily or so frequently. It's really interesting. Wonderful. Okay, thanks so much, guys. And I think we're going to wrap up the panel here. But really, really fantastic contributions, really good insights. What I hear a lot today is around diversity within subject areas, which is happening. Diversity of markets, whether within India or across South Asia, and a real evolution in terms of the market, in terms of maturation. People are looking for different subjects now as well than they were in the past. So can you just all please bring your hands together to thank the panel for joining us. They did a great job. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to the MC. Thank you.